Hello, welcome to this Wednesday edition, Believe in Bills. Adam Benigni, WGRZ TV. Sal Maiorana, Rochester Democrat and Chronicle on the Bills beat on this Media Wednesday from the field house, as you can see, with practice just wrapping up. Sal, you got a few miles on you this week. How you doing? Everything all right?
Yeah, everything was good. It's a long way to go for a football game, Adam. Seattle is that's out there. Had a couple of really tight, scary connections in O'Hare. I think I tweeted out at one point, there's nothing worse than when you have a tight connection at O'Hare and you're spending a half hour taxiing and trying to get to the gate. It's maddening. But, yeah, after some high blood pressure, ended up working out, and I got home safe and sound. So, yeah, all's good. And it was a nice way to go out there and watch a really good performance by the Bills. That might, like we talked about Sunday, that might have been their best game of the year, top to bottom.
Right, and now 6-2. On the year, essentially at the midway point with the Miami Dolphins coming to town on Sunday. So a lot to get to here. First, news of the day, and Amari Cooper with a wrist injury. He was out there at least during the individual portion of practice. I'm not sure what he did. He was out in uniform, but it was a heavy wrap on the wrist. Linebacker Terrell Bernard, wide receiver Curtis Samuel, limited. But let's get to Cooper and what you know about the nature of that injury.
Yeah, we don't really know much, unfortunately. Apparently it happened during the game. You know, they're terrible, as you know, post-game, giving us any information on injuries. And really, even on Mondays, because Sean was asked about, hey, how'd you come out of the game? And he didn't offer up much of anything on Monday either. It's always Wednesday when they finally get around to telling us, oh, yeah, this guy got hurt in the game, and this is the situation. So nobody knew about Cooper, but it is a wrist. And we don't know the severity. He was out there. He had his uniform on. It wasn't like he was completely off the field doing rehab. So maybe that's a good sign that as the week progresses, he can get back out there. But as of today, he did not practice. So it's definitely something to monitor. I mean, again, we don't know what the severity of the wrist is. I doubt it's broken, but if it's jammed or whatever, that'll be something to watch. And look, Adam, he's been here 2 weeks. And it's not like he's blowing everyone away with statistics. But if you look at the last 2 games, these have been Josh Allen's best 2 games passing in terms of yardage for sure. And we talked about this Sunday. I don't know how much impact he's having, but it is creating coverage differences on the other receivers and tight ends. So he's a guy that they kind of want out there, and it would be a blow if he can't play on Sunday.
No, there's no question about him. We talked about it the day of the trade, and then right after the trade, and then we've seen that play out exactly. It's not just about Amari Cooper. It's about everyone else in that receiving core and the dynamic that it creates and the options that it creates for Josh Allen and what opposing defensive coordinators now have to account for with Cooper even on the field. So it is a situation to watch. As I mentioned, another key player, linebacker Terrell Bernard, limited today, trying to work his way back. Wide receiver Curtis Samuel limited as well. So we'll see how that all plays out during the course of the week. Bet Online, I want to mention this here, is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. Head to the website today to get in on the action. Bet Online, the game starts here. Game starts 1 o'clock Sunday at Highmark Stadium. Bills-Dolphins, second meeting of the season. A blowout win for Buffalo in the first one. And obviously one, Sal, that cost Miami their quarterback in terms of a concussion with the unfortunate collision with Damar Hamlin. Tua Tagovailoa, a lot of questions as to whether or not he should even be back. He is back for this game. And the Dolphins, offensively, they were averaging like 10 points a game without him. And they're a different team, a season-high 27 in the loss to Arizona. I mean, they've had his number, obviously, in terms of the one-loss record, but Tagovailoa is a game changer for Miami.
Oh, there's no doubt. They are definitely a different offense when he's out there. Somebody asked McDermott today, do you not even bother looking at the 4 games that he didn't play? And of course, Sean being Sean, they look at everything. Well, I mean, come on, for crying out loud, why even bother watching what the Dolphins did the 4 games he missed? Because they were clearly incompetent with Tim Boyle and Tyler Huntley. Tua, Tua is not a superstar. He's not Josh Allen by any means, but he is definitely in the Mike McDaniel offense and the way they've built that thing and structured it to his physical abilities and talents. He's he's a very, very good player in that system. And we all know about the weapons. And he can definitely get definitely get the most out of those guys. Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, A-Chain, Raheem Mostert. We know all the names, and they can be an explosive, dangerous offense. Now, the thing is, though, they're dangerous and explosive against every team except the Bills, it would seem, because whatever Buffalo has done, they've kind of found the secret sauce to limit the damage that those guys have done. And really, Adam, no greater example of this than Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill has never had a 100-yard receiving game as a Dolphin against the Bills. We remember him killing Buffalo in those 2 playoff games, like literally killing the Bills. I think he had over 330 yards combined in those 2 playoff games. I'm not sure he has 330 yards in the 6 games he's played for Miami or against the Bills. So they have done a great job limiting the damage, and it'll be very interesting to see what happens on Sunday, because this is a desperate Miami team coming here. They have got to win if they have any hope of catching the Bills in the division. So big week for the Bills defense here.
Oh, there's no question about it. And let's, look at the history of this. I mean, you alluded to it, but it bears out in the numbers. And Sean McDermott, of course, defensive head coach, 14-2 now against the Miami Dolphins. And it speaks to exactly what you were just talking about. I go back to that, week 4 last year when Miami got off to that incredible start, putting up all kinds of numbers. They're talking about this being a historic offense or whatever. And the Bills, relatively early in that matchup in Orchard Park, really limited them, and they provided the blueprint Sean McDermott designed. He was, of course, calling the defense at the time last year, but his imprint was all over this thing, figured out a way to really limit them and slow them down. And that's something that's really continued here. What is it about what Sean McDermott does and his ability to limit this team in particular?
Yeah, I mean, look, we all know that McDermott has been outstanding throughout his career coaching defensive backs, right? He made his mark doing that in Carolina or Philadelphia and then Carolina, and that clearly has continued in Buffalo. And what's really impressive, Adam, is for the first, 7 years he was here, he had Tre'Davious White for most of it, Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer back there. Now he's doing it with basically an entirely new cast. Obviously, Rasul Douglas and Christian Benford are playing great, but, their safeties, we came into the season clearly worried about the safety play. And I still think DeMar Hamlin doesn't really belong on the field as a starter. He just happens to be the best guy they've got. And Taylor Rapp has played okay. Certainly not great, but he's played okay. And the reason he's played okay, Adam, I think, is because McDermott and his staff know how to coach that area of the team. They do a great job. And that, I think, has been the key ever since he got here. It's why they've been able to do such a great job against Miami. You realize the Dolphins have not won in Buffalo since December of 2016. In fact, it was Rex Ryan's last game as head coach. That was the infamous day where they had 10 men on the field in overtime, and I forget who broke that long run, and they won the game in overtime. McDermott's never lost to Miami in Buffalo. So it really is an impressive record. And again, it goes back to he is, no matter what fans want to say about his head coaching ability, and I think they're all full of it because I think he's a very good head coach. He is, above anything else, a really good defensive coach, and that's showed out almost every time they've played the Dolphins.
Yeah, nowhere has it manifested itself more than in the matchups, I think, with Miami. Again, another one coming up, 1 o'clock kickoff on Sunday, and he's getting another piece back. Von Miller returns from a 4-game suspension. And before we started recording this, I just listened to Von's press conference. And, he's talking about the fact how he's had 4 weeks now to really work on his conditioning, continue to work on his craft, that at his age, that's a benefit, and that he essentially feels like he's starting fresh with no wear and tear on his body. He's going to, look at the positives as he always does, but he did have 3 sacks in the first 4 games, and the Baltimore game, given the nature of it, was one where he was off the field for so much of it. But he did have 3 sacks in 3 games to start the year. He was making an impact when they had him out there. What do you anticipate as far as his return?
Yeah, absolutely. I think he said it all. He's had 4 weeks to rest, and that shouldn't be overlooked for a guy who's his age who's had 2 major knee surgeries in his career. So, yeah, I think it's definitely something that's going to benefit the Bills. Look, Casey Tuhill has been filling in. He's gotten some of those rotational snaps. But if you could roll out Von Miller, A.J. Epinesa, Greg Rousseau, Dwayne Smoot on your edge, it's a pretty good group of 4. So I think that's going to be a great thing for the Bills to get him back. And you're right. You pointed it out. I expected nothing from Von Miller after what we saw last season. I was pretty surprised by how well he played in the games before he got suspended. And part of the reason for that, Adam, is because they were using him judiciously, right? It wasn't 65, 70, 80% of the snaps. They were using him in spots where they knew he could succeed, mostly on passing downs. But that's what he's excelling at right now. That's what he does at this stage of his career. So you mix him back into the group. I think it's a very good thing for the Bills to get. Hopefully he can stay healthy now. I mean, I believe his legal troubles are behind him. There won't be any suspension coming right now. So if he just stays healthy, I think he can have an impact on this season. And as I said, that was not something that I was expecting when this season started.
And that's when they acquired him. The idea was, because obviously he has some miles on the odometer in terms of age and the surgeries he's had, and injuries have prevented this. But the whole goal has been to have Von Miller be at his absolute best and most effective down the stretch of the regular season and into the postseason. And perhaps the silver lining in the suspension is that it lessens the wear and tear on him, and it could help the Bills ultimately achieve that as the season, if we look toward the second half here, and as they manage, the number of plays, the snap counts that he's actually on the field. But I do think it's a positive for Von Miller to be back in the lineup. Let's switch gears and talk.
It was interesting too, Adam. They changed the rule in the CBA this year, and he was actually allowed to be with the team throughout the 4 weeks. Mm-hmm. In the past, you had to leave the facility for the 4 weeks. You were gone. And he was able to stay connected to the team. I don't know exactly what he was able to do, but I'm pretty sure he was able to be in meetings and all that stuff. He just couldn't play. Now, I wasn't over there for his press conference. I was in the locker room when he was speaking. I'm not sure if he was asked about it, but somebody asked McDermott about that. And they said, well, this is all new territory because this just happened this year. We'll see if that makes a difference with how he's able to return after being away or, unable to play for 4 weeks. So I don't know what he said about it, if anything, but it is something to watch. When you're suspended 4 weeks, that's got to suck for a player to have been gone, be a ghost for those 4 weeks. I saw him in the locker room last week, and I actually went up to talk to him about something else. And he said, well, I can't talk. That's the rule. But he could be with the team in the locker room. And again, I assume he could also be in the meetings. I don't think he could be on the field, but he could be in the meetings and all that stuff. So that's probably a positive too.
It could only be a positive at this point in terms of whatever changes or alterations they've made from a defensive standpoint. He would have, relatively firsthand knowledge of that, being close to the facility and in the building. So obviously a situation to watch. I'm sure the Miami Dolphins are Von Miller's return. Let's switch gears and talk offense. And as much as Sean McDermott has had Miami's number, Josh Allen has too. 12-2 in his career against the Dolphins. The Bills are averaging, I think, 32 points a game against Miami. I mean, it's been so impressive. And then you look at now, obviously the Amari Cooper injury is one to watch, and we touched on that off of the top. Does that change affect the passing game in some way and how Miami is able to approach this game defensively if he's not able to play this week? But in the big picture, I mean, Allen has been tremendous against the Dolphins. And then we talked a bit about this on Sunday coming out of the win at Seattle. You factor in the run game and how effectively the Bills are able to run the football when they want to and need to. And it only bodes well for continued success against this team.
Absolutely. Hey, look, they went down to Miami in week 2. Their short week traveling, which is never an easy thing in the NFL. Didn't have Amari Cooper then, and they put up, 31 points. I mean, 31. Allen played his usual terrific game. The offense was humming in that game. So even without Cooper on the field, they did perfectly fine. Josh, it is amazing, right? I mean, it's like Brady against the Bills. It was always just he owned the Bills. Josh Allen has owned the Dolphins. I mean, he has played. I think we're up to 5 AFC Offensive Player of the Weeks against Miami that Allen's had in his career. So yeah, they must be really sick of seeing Josh Allen. And, Josh Allen's only, 28 years old? There's still a lot of years that Miami's going to have to deal with him. So it's just funny, too. Like I said, it's crazy how he can be so good against one particular team. Now, obviously, he sees the Dolphins because they're a division rival. But that goes the other way, too, Adam. They've seen a ton of him. And you would think they would have figured out some way to slow him down or at least not get totally killed by Josh Allen. But they haven't figured it out yet. And this began his rookie year when he went down to Miami that first time and Charles Clay dropped the ball. He almost beat him in that game. And he was as raw a player as you could ever imagine in 2018. You were there. We all saw it. And he still almost beat him in that game. And the only other game he lost was that 2022 200-degree day when they lost like 10 players, and he still had them in position. They were 10 yards away from trying a game-winning field goal. So it's just truly amazing how he has owned the Dolphins. And for longtime Bills fans who grew up with that streak in the 70s, believe me, Bills fans are loving. They are loving the fact that Josh Allen is kicking the living shit out of Miami every time he plays them.
Yeah, I mean, I remember that, and that early season loss at Miami in the Heat. That was the Ken Dorsey slam the iPad game.
Yeah,
and they easily could have won that game.
Oh,
in fact, he underthrew. Was it McKenzie? Who was it? Like it was the receiver was wide open.
Oh, there were so many moments.
Gabe Davis drop in the end zone in that game. Yeah. They easily could. They lost that game about 3 different ways. They beat themselves 3 or 4 different ways in that.
Exactly. There were so many moments in that game. I think the stats were so one-sided. It was laughable how they dominated the statistics. And of course, the only one that matters is the score. And they just you remember the end of the first half. They screwed up. He couldn't throw the ball away in time, or no, either he couldn't throw it away or he threw it in bounds as the clock was running out, and that cost him a chance at a field goal. Well, at the end of the game, those 3 points might have really mattered because it might have won the game. So, yeah, that's a game that Bills fans want to forget, but you can't forget it because it's one of only 2 times that Miami has beaten Josh Allen. So, yeah, right. It's been fun to watch, believe me.
It's essentially a play away from Allen being 13-1 against this team.
And like I said, it could be 14-0 if Charles Clay caught the ball. Right. The ball was right there. Catch it. They win that game too.
All right, so that was then, this is now. And let's talk about the big picture. I mean, the Bills have a stranglehold on this division right now. I mean, 4-game lead on the Jets with the tiebreaker, right? 3.5 on the Dolphins with the tiebreaker in terms of the 31-10 victory in the head-to-head back in week 2. I mean, they could really distance themselves. We had talked about it. They win Sunday. I mean, this division could effectively be over by Thanksgiving.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the last 3 weeks, Adam, you should think back to October 14th. They went into New York, and had they lost that game, they'd be 3-3, and the Jets technically would have been in first place that night. Since then, they have gone 4 games ahead of the Jets and 3.5 against the Dolphins. These last 3 weeks have been absolutely dream weeks for the Bills. The Dolphins have lost all 3, I believe. They might have lost. Maybe they won 1 in there. They might have beaten the Patriots in there. But still, they've lost 3 of their last 4, I believe. And the Jets have lost, 4 in a row or 5 in a row, whatever it is. I mean, it could not have gone any better. And, of course, McDermott is completely poo-pooing that. And rightfully so. There's still 9 games to go. A lot of crazy stuff can obviously happen, injuries being a big part of that. But the Bills, honestly, they could not be in a better position halfway through the year than where they are right now. There is no team in the NFL that even has close to this kind of lead in their division. So the Bills are, I'm not going to say cruise control, but they are in a very, very nice position. Keep your foot on the accelerator, Adam. You can't let up. To keep taking it through. And then, when you get to the end of the season, see where you are. But they're in a good spot. So
no, they really are. I mean, look, we've talked about this. They've exceeded expectations at 6-2. I did not anticipate a 6-2 start. And now you're working on your midseason report cards for the Rochester Democrat and Chronicle, and I'd love you to share some of that insight. But it's really the fact that they are where they are, and it's how they've done it, the acquisition of Amari Cooper, how they've played even without Terrell Bernard more recently in the lineup. They've answered a lot of the questions that I think we had about them in the off season and in training camp. So they're at 6-2, and they're a strong 6-2, and coming off their most complete game of the season, which was complimentary football, to quote Sean McDermott, to an absolute T in the win over the Seahawks.
You think about it, they opened the season at home against Arizona. So that means they've played 5 of their last 7 games on the road, including that 3-in-a-row stretch, which you don't see that a whole lot in the NFL. The schedule makers try not to put a team on the road for 3 straight weeks. They did with the Bills. And look at those 3 games, man. At Baltimore, at Houston, who are going to be 2 teams who I think no doubt are going to be in the hunt to win the AFC Championship. And then, as we said, going to New York, that looked like on paper that was going to be a tough game. That was the 3rd of the 3 in a row. So for the Bills, like we said, to be 6-2 with that type of test, with the 5 games and 7 out of 7 on the road, it really is impressive. And you got to love the way they've done it. Adam, Josh Allen, last I checked, I think the other day, he actually is back to being the front runner in the MVP race, which, as you might imagine, I don't care one bit about. But the fact that he is there, playing the way he's played, is really a testament to how much he has grown and matured as a quarterback. He's not putting up these 400-yard games, but he has become a smart quarterback. He's protecting the ball. He's making good decisions, and he's had a few nice statistical games thrown in, there's no doubt. But I love the way he's playing the game right now. I think this is – I'm not going to say it's the best he's ever played, because in 2020 and for a good chunk of 21, he was absolutely otherworldly. But right now, I think this version of Josh Allen might be the best we've seen. And that's great news for the Bills, given how good he's been already.
I would call it the most refined version of Josh Allen, in the sense that he finally threw an interception. Right, the turnovers, that was the biggest area he had to clean up, and so the way this offense has kind of evolved, he's limited the turnovers. And like you said, smart, mature. I mean, this is the type of quarterback play within the context of this team and all the other variables. It's championship caliber. I mean, that's the type of QB that not only is going to win an MVP or could win an MVP, but could really potentially put his team, as we look toward the second half of the season here, in a very good position. If everyone stays healthy, they're going to be an extremely tough out if they're as balanced as they are and complementary in the areas we've talked about.
This is how you win playoff games, Adam. Playing the way the Bills are right now. They've been great in red zone defense. They're 5th in the league, allowing in touchdown percentage. You make stops in playoff games down in the red zone, you're doing well. You don't turn the ball over in the playoffs, you're going to do well. This is how you do it. I mean, look, he was fantastic early in his career with these 300- and 400-yard games and all that, but that doesn't always work when you play the best teams who have the best defenses in the playoff games. But the way they're playing right now on both sides of the ball, I think they are well equipped. And like you said, as long as they stay mostly free of injuries, they are well equipped to go into January. And really, there's not a team on their schedule that they would play that I would be fearful of. Now, obviously, Baltimore kicked their ass. That's going to be a tough matchup regardless, because they are a really good team and they match up physically. They match up better against the Bills than probably any team in the league. So if they run into the Ravens and it could be down there, that would be tough. But you know what the big test is going to be? I can't wait to the Chiefs game. When they come here in whatever it is now, almost 3 weeks, that will be the test to see where these Bills are in terms of what might happen in January. You get past that team in the regular season, then you get a really good sense of what this season could become for the Bills.
Yeah,
Not that I'm looking ahead, Adam, but there's still some work to do in between. But that is going to be a huge, huge day for the Bills.
No, we can look ahead. Media is allowed to look ahead. It's
okay, they
can't. That can't. Right. No, but I think that's going to be your in-season litmus test, right? No question about it. And I would be very interested to see. I agree, and we talked at length about it. The Ravens, the nature of that matchup, is tough for Buffalo. It kind of, in a different way, reminds me of the matchup, the struggles they've had against the Cincinnati Bengals and that rhythm passing game when it's been on with Burrow in the past. It's been a nightmare matchup for the Bills. I don't know that I'd put the Ravens, and again, entirely different reasons, but potentially as these two teams are constructed, that's something we could see develop. But I would be very interested to see another matchup with the Ravens and how that might. I don't think it would be the blowout that it was earlier this season, I guess is my point. And so now, as we look ahead to the Friday edition, we're going to get in much more into the matchup with the Miami Dolphins with the answer to a trivia question. So, who caught Dan Marino's first career touchdown pass?
Well, should I say, because I know who the guest is? But
yeah, so go ahead.
It is Joe Rose, who was formerly a tight end for the Dolphins. He's been a long time media guy down there. He's on the broadcast, right? I'm pretty sure he's on the broadcast.
Yeah, he's their radio color voice, and a long time lead sports anchor at WTVJ, the NBC Network O&O down in Miami. So we got to know each other over the years. That way, he's a terrific guy, and present company included. He's a tell it like it is kind of guy.
Yeah.
I mean, he'll give some really good insight into the nature of the match.
All right, so now, Joe. If he caught Marino's first touchdown pass, I'm pretty sure, I don't know if he played before in his rookie year, but I'm pretty sure his first start was against the Bills. And it was a crazy game that the Bills ended up winning down there, like 38-35, I think. I'm old, I can't quite remember. But if that was the game, then that was against the Bills. Now, again, I don't know if Marino played as a backup before that game against Buffalo, because it was like week 5 or 6. But I'm pretty sure his first start was against the Bills. We'll have to look that up before we get Joe on.
Oh yeah, and I'm sure he'd be happy to walk down memory lane. There'll be plenty of past, present, and future discussion in that again Friday edition of Believe in Bills. So and when do your report cards come out in the DNC?
I'm doing the offense for tomorrow morning, and the defense will be Friday morning.
All right. We'll look forward to that, and we'll look forward to talking to you again on Friday. For Sal Maiorana, Rochester Democrat and Chronicle, at One Bills Drive in the Field House after practice on this Wednesday, I'm Adam Benigni, WGRZ TV. Bills and Dolphins, 1 o'clock Sunday, Highmark Stadium. Thank you for being with us here on Believe in Bills.